Secrets Exposed. Here at Success Secrets Exposed, we have intimate conversations with today's thought leaders, change makers, and disruptors, all designed to bring tools, strategies, and insightful perspectives about personal growth and business growth, designed to reveal the humanness of both success and challenge. Now, as I said, I'm Sally A. Curtis, Content Repurposing Whiz. We work with brilliant individuals, helping them turn their content into engaging visual brand assets. What we're best known for is turning books into 2 years' worth of social media posts with our done-for-you service that helps to amplify your impact because you stand out, you connect, your message is heard, and you get to reach more people with ease. But more importantly, today we're going to be talking about the rise of the Encore Entrepreneur. Savvy, seasoned, and successful with Simone de Haas. So Simone is an international speaker, founder, and CEO of the Seasoned Voices Network. She speaks on the theatre of leadership, conscious communication, and storytelling. So without any further ado, please welcome to the stage, Simone de Haas.
Well, good morning, good evening, and hello, everyone. And so lovely to be here speaking with you again, Sally.
Thank you. I absolutely love having you on the show. I know we get into such intricate, deep conversations that are very meaningful. So I know we'll zoom through our time together very, very quickly. But thank you for joining me. And I know this is such a passionate topic that we both are almost kindred spirits around. So I'd love for you to share with the audience a little bit about your backstory so they got a little bit of context, and then we'll dive in.
Okay, so a bit about the backstory. I suppose the most relevant, pertinent pieces of it are the fact that I worked in theatre for a very long time. It was essentially I've essentially had a portfolio career, I guess, where I've had one foot very firmly and happily in the world of the theatre, but at the same time, I also worked the corporate scene doing essentially things like being a personal assistant, events manager, admin manager, that kind of thing. But I've always had this really, really strong connection to theatre. And ultimately, it was, I suppose, what's informed my career trajectory, my business trajectory. I started my own business, or I started my own theatre company with my husband in 1994. And, you don't know what you don't know at that stage. I was in my my mid-30s at that point. And we started the theatre company, which we actually ran as an independent company for about 25 years. And we only closed that down around 2015. And then so that was a big chunk of my work, was producing, directing, creating theatre for essentially around comedy and things like that. So we produced our own theatre as an independent theatre company here in Brisbane. And then in 2009, by then 2009, I'd done various careers, as I said, both in theatre and in the corporate space. And I was made redundant again. I think I've been made redundant about 3 times. The third time, I thought to myself, there's something going on here. Maybe this is a call. Maybe this is a sign from the universe. Don't we all get those? That sign is like, wake up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at that point, I thought, one of the things that I've always done as a theatre director is coaching people for performance. And I thought, well, what if I transfer that skill into more of a corporate space? Still coaching people for performance, but for personal transformation and their personal development as well. And so I migrated into that, and I did some study and got my qualifications in coaching and mentoring. And so that was then my second business, if you like. Now, by then I was in my early 50s. And that is significant in terms of our topic today, because so many women do find they get to that kind of milestone, that significant milestone, and go, there's got to be more to what I'm doing. I've got to be able to create more of an impact. And that was a bit of a wake-up call for me, but more of a call to adventure rather than I'd wake
Yes.
up, what are you doing with your life? It wasn't that kind of, although there was a little bit of that, but it was
Yeah.
more of that call to adventure. What can I
Mm.
do to create bigger impact? And so, still using my theatre techniques, I developed the coaching and mentoring business. And
Mm.
then in 2011, I then stepped onto the stage again, but in a different way
Mm.
as a professional speaker.
Speaker.
And I'd been working with someone who had said, "Look, Simone, you've done all of this, and this is your background. You've got so much from your theatre and from the coaching and from everything that you've done in that space. There's so much that you could share with an audience around
Mm.
stagecraft and storytelling and working with professional speakers. Again, the coaching and mentoring kind of everything started to just come together. So all of the threads that had been woven into the early part of my career suddenly started to form a different kind of tapestry. One
Yes.
that involved my using all of my gifts, not saying, oh, well, this is what I did then, so I can't do it anymore, but
Yep.
recognizing that there were so many different aspects of myself that were
Mm.
helpful, that were useful, and that could create an impact for the people I wanted to work with. And of
Mm.
course, one of the best ways to do, rather than doing one to one, which is the coaching and mentoring, I really wanted to do one to many. I wanted to
Mm.
have that impact. And the global stage was where I decided that that was where I actually wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So that's a very reasonably short
Yes. Yeah.
background.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and I think that gives people context because there's. I listen to that and know obviously the story, and we've crossed paths through the professional speaking arena and stuff as well. But that call that comes, and I love how you phrased it. That call to adventure. For me, it was like I'd suddenly grown up and I'd found my spot. Like this is it. I finally found it. But it's interesting, and I always love how the universe has got that sense of humor, how we can then almost have the gift of retrospectively looking back, and we can actually see how those threads all join to create that tapestry. So I really, really love that. And isn't it interesting when we have the ability to do that, we actually suddenly, for me, it was suddenly seeing my own value and all of the different buckets of value that we have. And I think that's what is a conversation to have today, is helping people understand that there is so much wisdom in our experience and what we've done, including all of the pitfalls, pause points and possibility points that we've had. They've all colour that tapestry to where we've got to today. Yeah.
Exactly. And now I've just noticed that a few people have said that they can't hear me. So
Okay.
I'm actually just going to change headsets because I would hate for people to miss out.
Yeah.
Let me take a moment to address that.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
And if
Now,
you're
while you're
listening,
doing,
if you could maybe let me know if you can hear me better now.
that,
Okay,
and
let's see how we
I've
go with this.
turned the volume up for us both as well. So thank you for that feedback, everyone.
Okay.
Much
Thanks for
appreciated.
yes, thank you for letting us know. It's nothing worse than wanting to listen to a conversation and having a kind of strain to hear.
And not
So,
being able to.
yes. So, sorry, I was a little distracted now. So, your last point was
The fact that we're able to suddenly see when we hit that, for me, it was I had it both at 40 and then at 50, but we're hitting that point where you suddenly have that, you absolutely understand that call to adventure, but you actually know what I call it my quest, you know what your quest is, you know what your purpose driven element is. It's almost, for me, it was like a growing up or awake, some people call it an awakening. And I think that's the point for me when I realized that I wasn't one dimensional and that there's all these other buckets that I have, and that I was able to look back retrospectively and see how all of the buckets sort of aligned with each other, which was what was coloring the tapestry. And that's I suppose, the depth of the conversation with your experience that I'd like to explore more, because of this rise of this Encore Entrepreneur.
and I think maybe before we go even any further,
Further.
maybe I should just address what that actually means.
Mm,
Your listeners may have heard it referred to, but generally, it's encore entrepreneurs are those who, at a particular point in their lives, and it does tend to be the 50 plus bracket, but
mm,
it can be earlier than that as well, is that they look at what they have done before, and they might have had a business or they might have had a very professional
career.
uh, career.
Mm,
And so asking ourselves then at that point, we say, well, what is it that we really want to do with the rest of our lives? What is
mm,
it that we are searching for? What is it that we feel, what's the impact that we feel that we can make
mm,
in the world? And so the encore piece is about recognizing that there is a very significant second act for us all. We don't have to be driven by what has come before. Like
mm,
the whole thing with the second act of a play or a piece of theater is that you have all of this stuff unfold. You've got, the
mm,
story of your life essentially unfolds. There's a climactic point. The climactic point might be you turning 50.
mm.
And so we're left there kind of hanging. We have the interval that might be our 50th birthday, and then we
Yeah.
go, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life?
Yeah.
What is my encore? How am I going to set myself up for success in the second half of my life? And so encore entrepreneurs are those who actually choose to take a different road
Mm,
for the second half of their life, often very different to what
mm,
they've done in the first half. And it could be that they create their own business out of their passion, something
mm,
that they have always really been closely connected to. Or it could be that they move into something that they've always wanted to do but never
mm.
had the opportunity. And I see this all the time with many women, is that they often they've got to a point where maybe if they have children, they've left home or they've grown up
Correct.
enough for them not to be as much requiring as much attention, so we say.
Yeah.
Or they've come to a point in their lives where there's just a little bit more freedom, and
Correct.
as a result of that, that it's, well, how am I going to fill my days? What am I going to do that can create the biggest impact? And what's
Mm,
what's my legacy going to be?
yep.
And I work with so many women who have got to that point and say, look, I've got this fabulous idea for a book or a program, or I want to run a retreat, or I want to do this kind of work, but I don't know how to start.
Mm,
And there's that piece is about how do they start, how
mm,
can they get moving on this idea on, and how can they basically tap into that call to adventure and have
mm.
the courage to move forward with their idea, and to maybe get some support. And it was actually one of the reasons I created the Seasoned Voices Network, was to
Yeah.
create that kind of support for
Port.
women who wanted to move along a little further along with their great idea, or just needed some like-minded souls who they could talk to about what's next in my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, and I think you've touched on something that is so critically important is when you have that call and you find what your adventure is or your quest, and you've got a legacy of often wisdom or shared knowledge, because often it comes from that, I want to just get this out to the world. It's, I want to be able to share this. I want to make that impact for the other generations, and to make the path easier for the next people coming along. Having that community of like-minded people that are on that same, or having that same experience of call to adventure. It may all be lots of different types of adventure, but having that collective where you can share ideas, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It actually helps to build that courage momentum where you can actually move through and along that journey together, because you've got your comrades that are doing the same thing as well. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your community and how you're seeing those sorts of things happen within it.
Well, one of the reasons I actually started it was that I couldn't find a group
Mm,
like that for myself.
yeah.
And working as a coach and mentor, when you're doing your training and all of that, of course, you have mentors who work through the program with you and
Mm.
through your work. And after that's over, you're kind of like, oh, off you go, do your own thing.
So true.
And
So
and it's
true.
like, where's my support network now? And you might stay in touch with a few other students and whatnot.
Yeah.
But really, you're on your own. And I've always been very proactive, I suppose, in addressing some of the things that I need. So if there's something that is um, that I feel is maybe missing in my life or in my circle of connections, I'll look at, well, what else is out there? What can
Mm.
I tap into? And I have incredibly strong connections, as you can imagine, through the world of theatre with
Mm.
many actors and other directors, and so that community is very strong and very solid. But when you move then into a slightly different, so you might move into a different career or different
Mm.
trajectory with a business, you suddenly don't have that same support network.
So
And
true.
I was looking around and I was thinking, well, I have some really amazing female friends, many of whom I consider mentors for
Mm.
me. We can get together and we can talk about, some of the really sticky things, whether it's in
Yeah.
business or personal. But
Yeah.
when I looked at the broader community, in terms of women beyond 50,
Mm.
there wasn't a lot around. There's a lot of focus on young entrepreneurs. There's a lot of
Yeah.
focus on startups. There's a lot of focus on women moving up through business or
Corporate.
through their careers, which is
Mm.
all absolutely essential, and for men as well.
Mm.
But for women over 50, there's very little. And so when I actually realized that, okay, I could probably count on one hand the number of women that I would call if I was in difficulty. And I thought, that's not good enough.
Mm.
It's not good enough for me to be able to really, make the impact I want. And if that's me, and I'm, reasonably adept at networking, and I've
Mm.
been in many networking groups, but if that's how I'm kind of looking through the world through that lens, that I have very limited support,
Mm.
what about all of the women who are just starting out in
Starting
their
out.
business and they don't
Mm.
know what they don't know yet?
Mm.
That's, I thought, well, we've got to create something where women can come together and they can talk about, well, this is what I'm working on, have a bit of a creative
Brainstorm.
a
Mm.
session together where you can say, well, this is what I'm thinking of, but I'm not quite sure how I go. Like I've got kind of the end goal in mind, but I don't know actually what are the significant steps for me to get there. And
Mm.
somebody's commented in the chat, learning the art of business. Absolutely,
Mm.
it's the biggest initial hurdle. And so
Yes.
one of the reasons I created the Seasoned Voices Network is for women, and I do have some men in the group as well, some of my clients over the last couple of
Mm.
years. And so enabling us to be able to come together and to talk about some of the things that, or the issues, if you like, that are experienced mainly by women over 50.
Mm.
So women coming up through the ranks, developing their careers, maybe developing their a startup business, they have a heck of a lot more support. There's a lot of awards around that they can apply for.
Yeah.
When you hit that kind of like that line in the sand, where you are nowhere near done yet. But society has a habit of kind of like going, oh well, you're over 50. We're going to put you over in that corner. It's almost
Yeah.
like the naughty corner, and so
Yeah. Bring on that naughty
so
corner.
bring on the naughty corner. And
Yes.
so that was really at the core. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to have more women around me
Mm.
that I could support, but who would also provide some of that go-to for me as well. That
Yeah.
like who mentors the mentors is what
Yeah.
it really comes down to. And I volunteer a lot of my time to mentor for the Brisbane
Yeah.
Business Hub and for other particular groups when I'm asked for speakers, upcoming
Yes.
speakers. But when it
Yeah.
comes to it, like who's there for me?
Yeah.
And so when I realized that there was this gap, I thought, well, I've got to do something about it because I can.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it just for me, and I'm well beyond the 50 mark now. I was 66 last birthday. So
Yeah.
for me, I'm constantly reinventing myself and my business. And so
Mm.
I'm not alone. There's plenty of women over 60 developing a business for the very first time who need help, who need support, and who want to know, how can I do this and how can I do it well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the beauty of that collective of asking those questions, how can who mentors the mentor, but also how can I do this well, regardless of age. One of the common things that I see is that we don't we can't read our own label when we sit inside our own jar. And somebody else said it another way the other day, which was, we can't see our eyebrows. But having that, which I thought was brilliant, I love both of those. And that when you've got a group of women together and or men, you've got the opportunity to ask those questions, how do I step forward? We often don't see it. And I know myself, I don't see the steps for myself, but someone will go, it's just blah, blah, and blah. And it's like, oh yeah, of course it is, because I would have said that to you had you asked me. But that's the beauty of that collective tacit knowledge and wisdom. When we share it in a collaborative cohort like that, we really do prepare ourselves and each other forward. And I think that's the magic that comes with wisdom, and with the opportunity to be collective in that manner. So well done.
Thank you. It's a work in progress, like everything.
Yeah.
I started it a year ago, and I've been just letting it grow at its own pace.
Mm,
I don't push it. I talk about it when I have the opportunity, and
yeah.
I invite people to. It's a free network. I invite people to come and join. And because the majority of it is online, even though I
Yeah.
try to run some in-person events, anybody can actually be a part of it.
Yeah.
And we can
Beautiful.
share a little bit more about how to do that later on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more as it relates to this rise of the Encore Entrepreneur, as it relates to the mindset and the growth thinking. So you would have seen lots of different challenges come up for yourself, as I have. So happy to be part of that conversation, as well as the community that you're developing. So I know you've got some particular models or phrases around the mindset and growth thinking. Can you just expand on some of that with us, as well as what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. And the first one, as you say, focusing on mindset. Now, the way that I like to refer to it is, we've all heard about open and closed, or growth
Mm,
mindset versus fixed. I like to refer to it as open or obsolete. So
mm,
one of the first things we have to do, and this has been a constant for me, I feel like I'm constantly reinventing how I do my business, how I put myself out there. And
agreed.
Seasoned
Yeah.
Voices is very much a part of that. And I think we all go through that at
Mm,
different stages of our life. We realize that our lived experience and our wisdom and everything starts to come together in a slightly different way.
correct.
And
True.
so if we can actually focus for a moment on our do we have an open mind, or are we really tapping into obsolete thinking? So
Mm,
that's thinking that might have got you where you were 30 years ago or 20 years ago or even last week.
mm,
But we change every single day. Something else pops up to either challenge us or to help us to grow in a different way, or
yeah.
we learn something new and go, oh my God, I never knew that. It's
So
like
true. Yeah.
like Helen Keller says, life should be a daring adventure or nothing.
Yeah.
So,
It
like
is.
this
Yeah.
call to adventure requires us to have an open
Mm,
mind about opportunities, because
mm.
they, as you would know, Sally, they never show up like you think they're going to. And
No.
and we might say, right, this is how I'm going to create this, like for myself with the Seasoned Voices Network, this is how I'm going to create it. I'm going to do all of these events, I'm going to do this. And then nobody wanted to come to events because they were scared about COVID at the
COVID.
time. And
Mm.
so, oh, okay, well, I have to do all my events online. Okay, well, I can do this and I can do that.
Shift.
And
Yeah.
then something else shifted and changed. So
Yeah.
you've got to be open to opportunities that show up. And you've
Mm,
got to also be really aware about your thinking,
mm,
and is there obsolete thinking in your world that is not moving you forward? So are you hanging
Mm.
on to the way you used to do things? And particularly if you're moving into a business for an
Mm.
encore entrepreneur, your thinking has to change,
Mm.
because you're not only the business owner, you're also managing the business. So you're working in the business
Business
and
and
on
on.
the business,
Yeah.
so you've got to make sure, is that sustainable for you? If
Mm.
if you're moving out of looking after family into having more free time, some of the thinking that is now perhaps obsolete is that you've got to put everyone else first.
Yes.
Whereas
Yes.
now you might think,
Yes.
well, I don't need to do that. So the very first tip, I suppose, is to really pay attention to your thinking. Is it
Mm.
open? Are you open? Is your mind, in fact, open for business?
Mm. Well said. Brilliant.
Just popped in.
Yes. Love
Are
it.
you open for business? Is your thinking allowing you to be open for business, or is that obsolete thinking getting in the way and kind of like um, basically, uh, you know, contracting you and not
Tracting. Mm.
allowing you to
Mm.
really flourish in this new venture? So we
Mm.
really do need to pay attention to our thinking.
Mm. Mm.
And then on the back of that is being able to let go of expectations. As I said, opportunities don't show up in the way that we think they're going to.
Very
You
true.
know, it might be, well, this is how I want to do it, and this is how it's going to come about. Now, the universe, as we know, has slightly different plans. They don't
And a
do
big sense
timing
of humour. Yep.
and a wicked sense of humor, and don't do
Yes.
timing the same way that we
Mm.
mortals do. So,
Yep.
sometimes we think, oh, well, it's going to be like this. I had great plans. I expected to have lots of paid members in my group in the first year. And I realized that people just wanted to try it out first. They wanted to have a
Yes.
taste. And so
Yes.
I have lots of members now, but it's not a paid community. It's a free community. And
Mm.
it felt like, well, that's actually what it needed to
To
be.
be.
So
Yeah.
my original idea, I had to let go of those expectations of how things would unfold and the
Mm.
timing in which it would unfold. And
Mm.
just recognize that as I stepped up, as I stepped forward, as
Mm.
I showed up more and more and
Mm.
more people would be drawn to that and drawn
Mm.
to that energy. So letting go of the way things will show up is really important as well. And
Mm.
again, it ties so beautifully into the idea of the open mindset and being open in your heart and in your
But
mind for
yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of it as well, because often we think, well, I'm ready to do this, but our heart's saying something else.
Yeah.
Our heart's saying, who are you to do this, and
Yeah.
why should you be doing this? Why would anybody listen to you? I work a lot with emerging speakers,
Mm.
and it's one of the things that they all struggle with. They say, well, everybody else is already talking about this. Why would anybody want to listen to me?
Mm.
And so you've got to help them to understand what is uniquely different about them,
Mm.
and that's actually the piece. It's
That's
not
their
even so
perspective.
much the
Yeah.
content, it's their perspective on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Their wisdom.
helping us to move forward and the wisdom that we've generated over our time.
Yeah.
So recognizing that these are all pathways to setting up the stage
Mm.
for a significant second act.
Mm. Mm.
The encore entrepreneur. And then the final piece is, and again, all three kind of weave together really beautifully,
They do.
is which voice is uppermost? Is it the sage, the voice of wisdom, the wise woman, the one who kind of has your best interest at heart,
Heart.
who
Yeah.
can show you the way forward, who is heart based, not ego based? So that's the sage wisdom. Is
Mm.
that voice louder, or is the saboteur louder?
Louder. Yeah.
And we all have that
Mm.
that push and pull, where it's like one day you go, right, I can do this, I've got this, I know what my next steps are, I know how to move forward. And then the saboteur comes in and says, oh, but everybody else is doing that already, nobody wants your work, or
Yeah.
so and so's just been talking about that on social media. I can't really add anything further to that. again, is about recognizing which of those two voices are louder,
Mm,
and then addressing, looking at that. And that's where, having a mentor, having a coach to work with you through some of these
mm,
challenges, because it can be very challenging when you're moving into an area or of, say, business, and you have this passion project and you want to turn it into a business, but you don't quite know, like, how do I do this? Like, yes, you can get lots of information about how to set up a business, but how do I get clients? How do I reach people? How
mm,
do people find me? What
mm,
do I
more
do?
importantly. Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
more
mm.
importantly, how do people find me, and how can I serve them best?
Yes.
So paying attention to those two voices, being open to opportunity, open for business, rather than using obsolete thinking to try and
Yeah.
get you where you want to go, and letting go of the expectation that things should show up in a certain way and in a certain time.
That's
So
for all
they're
of
my
those
three,
people.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say that's the letting go as a known control freak, and I like to get everything all lined up, which is why we know that the universe has a very wicked sense of humour, because I like everything lined up, and it'll something comes along and just goes, I'll just give that a shake, and it's sort of
Yes.
like just all out of whack, and it's like, okay, I can work with
Yeah.
that. So that adaptability. Um,
Yeah.
but I think, sort of touching on that mindset thing, one of the visuals that came up for me that somebody shared with me, when you've got that dichotomy of the, courage and then the wobbles, was, the one day you've slung on your superwoman cape and you're ready to go, and then something, the saboteur, comes along and just staples that cape to the wall, and you're stuck. And then it's just, picking them all off again and getting going. It's having that visual of, yes, I've just been stapled to the wall, so to speak, but that you have the ability to rip it off the wall, and get going again. And it's just, for me, it was about creating little, oh yeah, that's, putting a picture to it and working out, okay, well, I can get around that picture and moving forward. But having the ability to laugh about those situations, which really are only momentary if you let them be momentary, having the opportunity to share those, those wobble moments with other people, actually does help you to propel yourself forward. And you actually do have to laugh about it, just like you laughed when I said about the staples down the wall. We've all felt that, and we've all broken free of that yet again to continue on that journey. And I think that courage that it takes to be on that quest or that adventure call, is the fun, and the adventure in itself of that self-discovery, and creating the impacts that we want within the world.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
actually, well, quite a few years ago now, I think I wrote a blog post which I called Went to the Wobble. So, and it was actually about the creative process, because I worked a lot with training actors in film and television,
Mm,
and young actors. So I'm talking 18 to 25. So they were fairly new to the industry,
yeah.
and emerging artists, if you like. And they go to the wobble quite a lot, because
Yes.
they're still trying to find their place in the world. And so anything can kind of like knock them
Mm,
sideways. They don't get an audition, or they get knocked back for something that they were sure that they were a shoe-in
yeah.
for, and
Yeah.
but they just didn't look right. It's a very subjective industry,
Mm,
unfortunately.
mm,
It's not just about talent. And so finding the thing, like being resilient in that space, like
mm,
as you say, working out, well, how do I unstaple that cloak off the wall? I just
mm,
love that visual. How do I free myself from that,
mm.
with the least amount of distress to myself or my cape, so that I'm
Yes.
ready to fly again in the future. And I think that's, building, one of the things that, particularly with an open mind and letting go of expectations, is that we can then be open for those opportunities to show up in a different way.
Yeah.
So yes, maybe we didn't get that project, maybe we didn't get the funding for what we hoped, but it's allowed us to okay, well, maybe I need to do this in a slightly different way,
Yeah.
and allows us to actually just develop a little bit more resilience too in the
Mm.
way that we deal with those kinds of setbacks.
Yeah, and more tools that are tucked in under that cape. We can, we've just got a different,
Exactly.
lots of selections of tools tucked in there.
Lots
So
of
that
pockets.
lots of pockets, yes, absolutely. One of the things that you've sort of talked about there, and it reminds me of what I'm going to ask you, is your favourite one-liner, because I think that's a really nice way to sort of lead into what you've actually said there. You've got well, I know you've got a couple of favourite one-liners, but I'd love you to share your favourite with us at the minute.
Absolutely. So it is, you're not for everybody, and that's okay.
Mm.
Now, oh, I just got all goosebumpy. So that's obviously an important one for people to hear. So I'll
Yeah,
say it again. You're not for everybody, and that's okay. It's probably the thing that it's one of my biggest learnings for myself.
yeah.
Um, and, that started as an actor where, I might not get the audition that I was sure that I was a shoe-in for. I
Mm.
think, well, I've got all the skills. I look the part, but somebody was better or a better
Mm.
choice at that
Mm.
moment.
Mm.
And then as you develop in business, the different businesses I've had, I would have, like, I would have these moments where I would just think, oh, I'm hopeless at this because I'm not getting the clients that I expect.
Yeah.
And part of that was that because I wasn't necessarily resonating at or vibrating,
Mm.
whatever language you like to use, because I wasn't putting out the energy of my true worth or my true self,
Yeah.
people couldn't necessarily find me.
Yeah.
And that's part of the magic of being an older woman, is that you get to a point and you say, you know what? I don't care if you don't like me. It's actually none
Yes.
of it's none of my business.
Yeah.
How you feel about me is actually none of my business.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. So if I'm not your cup of tea, I will be someone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
And so getting to a point in your life where you can just sit with that and be okay with that
Mm.
is absolutely magical. Because look, I'm not saying that that's me every single day. Of course there's going to be knockbacks. I go, oh, that's a shame, I was really hoping XYZ.
Yeah.
Let go of the expectation, go back to, okay, well, maybe there's something bigger and better out there, I just
Yeah.
can't see it at the moment.
Yeah.
But just recognizing that you're just not going to resonate for some people. And that's okay. As long as you are bringing your full self, your authentic self
Mm.
to the work that you are doing, you will find the people who resonate with you.
And they'll
There's
find
a
you.
wonderful
Mm.
there's a wonderful word that I use when I'm doing my Maestro Mindset program,
Mm.
and that is, the word is consonaire, and spelled
Mm.
Consonare, and it means to sound together.
Oh, wow.
Consonance. So when we are in consonance, so we have that resonance
Yeah.
and consonance. So when we are in consonance, we are totally in the vibration of our life. We are in the vibration of what we are here to share, what we
Mm.
are here to teach, what we are here, or the way in which we are here to impact.
Mm.
So when we ourselves are in that space of being totally in consonance with our own authenticity and our truth, then of
Mm.
course we are going to find the people who resonate with that. And they will be the people who you will just have so much joy working with,
Mm. Mm.
because or teaching or
Mm.
training or whatever your business might be, but they will find you because I go, I want what she's having.
Yes. Yes.
That's how I want to feel in my life. So
Mm.
that's the person to help me find that.
Yeah, and I think that's when you find that, and I'll just call it resonance at this point, you do all of a sudden start to attract, and you feel, and something shifts, and the ability to ebb and flow within that, because obviously there's still some ebbs and flows, but when you get that very, very, and I remember it distinctly, that very first taste of it. And I see it with clients when they get that very first taste of it, that something's just shifted. And they often think it's external. Something's just shifted, and they suddenly start to attract all of these new opportunities. They get really great feedback from their clients. They get feedback from the community. They're getting great results. But that's them coming together and the magic happening from within them that is actually bubbling or effervescing out. So yeah, beautifully expressed. Thank you, Simone. Awesome.
I like that. Well, it's one of those that, you can just, I think everybody should have it as a screensaver.
Yeah.
Just to remind themselves that, when something doesn't go the way they expect, then okay, that's all right. They're not necessarily my tribe, and I can work with that.
Yeah.
And I'm okay, and I can be okay with that.
Yeah, and that for me, I was having a little bit of a mental giggle when you were talking about it, because I remember chatting with Gary Edwards about, oh my God, I don't think I care anymore. I feel very black and white. It's either you're either in or you're out, and we had this conversation about we both got to a certain age, and how we actually didn't. Not so much we didn't care about our audience, but we didn't care about what was said if we weren't right. And that for me was where that growing up had come in. I'd finally grown up enough that I wasn't continually concerned about what other people thought. It was, I'll just seek all of the opportunities. I'll give it my best go. I'm on this adventure. I'm on this quest, and what's right is right, and what isn't isn't. And the ability to lean into that and then play along with that, which is part of that letting go process. I must admit, for me, it was a little bit challenging, and I know and feel that because I could look at it from the outside in and see it. But it was that for me was where the greatest growth and the greatest adventure has been, because of that letting go. And I think that in itself is such a big gift. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you find with the women that you work with that for those that are control freaks and like everything sort of upside up, how do you find is there a process? Do you find that there's something that happens? Is there a commonality that helps them move through that you'd like to share?
I do find that you still, like, for those who like to have some sense of control,
Yeah.
and whether it's, in their business, or whether they're trying to create something new, you still give them some structure.
Yes.
So it's kind of like, if you're doing in the theater, if you're doing improvisation,
Mm.
people think, oh, you just have to get out there and you just open your mouth and all this stuff comes out. But there is structure,
Structure.
even to improvisation.
Yeah.
Like, it requires you to have really great listening skills. You have to deeply listen to what you're being fed. So there is still, and there are certain, like, subtle rules that, you don't do this and you don't do that, because otherwise the project stalls. And
Mm.
the same is true. So taking some of those ideas from the world of improvisation
Mm.
into business, you've got to listen for the feedback that you might be given. So if your client is, and I'm working with a client at the moment who loves structure, so
Mm.
she gets structure, she gets an outline, and I say, okay, well, I want you to improvise within that structure.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
so we have something, that a container, if you
Yeah.
like. So
Yeah.
we have a container, but within that, just like I'm really mixing my metaphors, like a little sand pit.
Mm.
The sand pit has to have a boundary,
Mm.
because otherwise the sand just goes everywhere, and after a little while there won't be anything to play with.
Yeah.
So you have to have some kind of boundary. So
Mm.
that's the role of the structure, is to
Yeah.
create some boundaries. So you say, okay, we will do this, but we won't do that.
Yeah.
We will bring in this kind of thing to work with, but we won't bring in that kind of thing to work
Mm.
with. So we give them a sense of that they have a little bit of control, and we I encourage, I'm speaking in the royal we, and
Yeah.
I encourage them to then play, to
Yes. Yes.
play and
Yeah.
to be curious. So one of the other
Mm.
things, I really love to work with when I'm coaching people is to develop their sense of curiosity.
Yes. Yep.
And when you're really firmly in control, you kind of shut down your curiosity. You
Curiosity.
stop
Yep.
asking. And so, of course, that relates exactly to it relates to being able to see the potential in something
Mm,
that you're doing without
mm,
needing to control
the
how it's
outcome.
going to, what the outcome's going to
Mm,
be. So
mm,
that's again harking back to letting go of the expectation,
mm,
recognizing that you've got a certain amount of things that you're going to play with,
mm.
and then being curious about, well, what else? And so that's probably one of my other favorite, two other favorite things that I could share. One is to say yes and, which is
Yeah.
straight from the world.
Of
We've all
impro.
seen it
Yep.
and heard it a lot, straight from the
Yep.
world of info, which is how we generate the next piece of content or
Mm,
creation on that stage or in our business. We are curious and we ask yes and the other piece is to say what if, or to ask what if.
ah. Mm,
Yes and what if. So that's a
mm,
nice little sentence to remind you to stay in that curiosity mindset, that
mm.
open for business mindset.
Mm. And I think for me, when you were talking, I did some work earlier at the beginning of the year as part of the setup for the year, and we talked about be like water. And when you were talking, I wrote down the words. It's play in the fluidity, because I love structure to give me the racetrack. But like a lot of people, I'm also rebel against too much structure because there's that, how do you do that, but it's playing in that fluidity and having, as you said, those, the benchmarks, or the, small ground rules, but then having the curiosity to play within that container, because when you realize that there's a container there, it's way larger than what we think, which is that, that bigger mindset thinking side of things as well. So yeah, and that yes and what if was just brilliant. So thank you. We are fast coming to the end of the show. It just goes so quickly, doesn't it?
It does.
One thing I'd love to just ask you too is from an audience perspective, from a theatre perspective, and the connecting with this with the Encore Entrepreneur. How do you define connection or connecting with your audience?
I
It's an
think for
ambiguous question.
me, yes, it's a great question. It's a really great question. Not sure if I would use this as the definition. I'm perhaps going more to the how to.
Mm,
For me, it's all about the storytelling.
mm,
What story are you telling when you are out there? Are you living your brand? And you might be in the really early stages of your business as an encore entrepreneur. So you might not quite know yet what that even looks like. You might
mm,
have a sense of it. But part of that is that the connection is, as I said earlier, is about being authentic. It's
mm.
about really, and it can feel so overused
Yeah,
these days because everyone talks about, authentic marketing, which to me is like a what?
yeah,
it's,
agreed.
it's like, yeah, go different directions. But it is really about being like absolutely true to yourself, like true to what you believe in. So the way that you connect, I think, is that you must first connect to yourself.
Yeah.
You first need to understand what you stand for.
Mm,
So, what is it that like for me, having a sense of purpose and being passionate about what I do are vital to me. They're some of my strongest values. Do I know
mm,
how some of it's going to unfold? Absolutely not. But for
mm,
me to connect to an audience is about me recognizing my own truth
mm.
and living it and speaking that out loud.
Yeah. And I'm
And the
going.
way that I do that is through story.
It's through storytelling, and I'm just going to touch on a word that also gets a little bit overused, but I know I'm sort of feeling and sensing into that word of vulnerability within that storytelling, which is where the truth comes from. Can you add to that a little bit as well?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I've actually done a TED style talk on
Mm,
vulnerability as our greatest strength. And
mm.
a lot of people think, oh, well, vulnerability means like I literally have to open up everything and show the audience everything. And that audience can be
Yes.
online, it could be on stage, it could be whatever. And
Yeah.
it's not that. It's about having discernment
Mm,
about what parts of the story need to be shared that are relevant for the audience, are relatable for the audience.
Yeah.
It can't be something that has no, it just has no connection with that audience. If you're sharing something that happened to you when you're 3 years old, it's got
Mm,
to have relevance for helping the audience to understand a teaching point, for
mm,
instance.
mm.
So when it comes to vulnerability, it's not, baby and bathwater kind of stuff. It's not about airing your dirty linen in closet, airing the dirty linen, all of that kind of those kind of analogies. It's really about recognizing what are the parts of your story
Mm,
that will have the most resonance for your audience and the most relevance for your
mm.
audience, so that they can see themselves in your shoes and that they can connect with you on a deeper level.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. And in closing, how can people best connect with you and reach out to you to find out more?
Well, you have very kindly shared my website. So
Yes.
that is a way that you can find out a little bit more about the work that I do. And that also allows you, there's a link there that you can come and join us in the Seasoned Voices Network if
Yeah.
that is something that is calling to you today or when you're listening to this. And all of my contact details are on my website.
Yeah.
I also have a separate area like courses. So you'll find it on the courses page where I have a couple of free offerings where
Mm,
I have a fabulous little book called A Cup of Calm, which I
yes.
created during COVID to help people stay a little more connected, a little calmer, and
Yeah.
a little
Thank you.
more in control of their emotions and finding those moments in each day to pause, breathe, and simply be. And I
Yeah.
found that that's always been really, really popular. So you'll find the links to all of that on my website. So that's
Website.
hopefully the easiest. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn. So track me down there. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So YouTube, there's a number of different ways you can reach me. So I look
Absolutely.
forward to connecting with you.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing with you again today, Simone. Thank you for all of your wisdom that you've shared. I'm excited to be able to share this and get this out to a broader audience with and for you. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Sally. As always, delighted to be able to have these beautiful conversations with you. So thank you for hosting me.
You're very welcome. And for those wanting to know what's coming up next, we have a lady by the name of Heather joining us on our next episode, and we're going to be talking about the chaos control system. So another deep conversation on how to propel you forward, give you tools, strategies, and tips to have forward movement and grow in a way that you feel best is best for you. So thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Success Secrets Exposed. Take care.